So Apple had its good end of the year October event this morning where they released some pretty cool new stuff, including what I think is my personal favorite is the new iPad Pros and Pencil. Awesome to see things like USB-C finally implemented into the portable products, but that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about, and probably the reason you clicked on this video, is to understand why I think Apple needs to take a little example from themselves in 1997. For those of you who don't know the history of Apple, in 1996-ish, 1997, around that time, Apple was actually 90 days away from being bankrupt, by being finished. And because they weren't under the leadership of Steve Jobs anymore, they were under Scully and a couple other CEOs that they were burning through, and things were a hot mess. And 1997 is when Steve came back, and he came back with a very straightforward and simple product mindset. And I really think Apple should take note of their past and do it again. I'll let Steve explain it himself.
When we got to the company a year ago, there were a lot of products. These were the product platforms, 15 product platforms, and a zillion variants of each one. I couldn't even figure this out myself. After about 3 weeks, I said, how are we going to explain this to others when we don't even know which products to recommend to our friends? If we had 4 great products, that's all we need. And as a matter of fact, if we only had 4, we could put the A-team on every single one of them. And if we only had 4, we could turn them all every 9 months instead of every 18 months. And if we only had 4, we could be working on the next generation or 2 of each one as we're introducing the first generation. So that's what we decided to do, to focus on 4 great products.
Now, this isn't some new thing. Apple, for the past however many years, has kind of started slowly getting back to this hot mess of having a ton of products. When I worked at Apple a number of years ago, when the new MacBook Pros came out with the nice solid state, no CD drive, every single day I would spend like an hour with each person in the store explaining them why the solid state was better and they shouldn't buy the MacBook Pro with the CD drive anymore, even though it had more storage, because it wasn't going to last as long or be nearly as fast. And if Apple just kind of did what it does best, which is, you know, it's annoying when they take away something like the headphone jack, for example, but it's like the parent who's trying to do good for you even though you don't realize it, and then when you don't have that headphone jack anymore, it's like, oh, okay, I guess I didn't really use that much. And so eventually that's what they did with the MacBook Pro with the CD drive, but I believe it was like 2014 or 2015 before they ever took that away. And when they did that, I was very happy. But you have things like today where the MacBook Air was updated, but the MacBook wasn't. And for the number of years, the MacBook, the 12-inch MacBook that I have, was seen as a step up from the MacBook Air. But now when you go on Apple's website, it goes MacBook, MacBook Air, so they've swapped, and then MacBook Pro, but the MacBook Air is basically the same price, and if you configure it, it can be more expensive than the MacBook and almost as expensive as a MacBook Pro. Why? Like, kill the MacBook or kill the MacBook Air, have one, you know, lower end consumer computer here, and then when it comes to the Pro stuff, I mean, they updated the Mac Mini today, and if you look at the tonality of the ad they created, it's very dark and black and space gray. It looks awesome, right? It's the same sort of marketing that they use for their Pro computers, which is also kind of confusing because they didn't update the iMac Pro or the Mac Pro. And kind of like what Steve was saying in the video I just played, is you can tell that the teams are now split up. And so now you may not have this A team everywhere, and you have this Mac Mini B team that's been working the past couple of years or however long to create this stuff, but then we were promised a modular Mac Pro update where's that? Not even a teaser. It was supposed to come out sometime this year, and we don't even have any hint of that happening. And who knows, if the Mac Mini took away from that, like, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then looking at the iPad section, you have the new 11-inch and 12.9-inch iPad Pro, but they still sell the iPad Pro that's a 10.5-inch. So you literally have a 10.5-inch iPad Pro from the past year or two, and then a new 11-inch, so half an inch more and all the new features. But then you still have the regular consumer iPad and an iPad Mini, which hasn't been updated in I forget how long. And then the iPhones, you have the iPhone XS and XS Max, of course, but then you still sell, and the new 10XR, but then you still have the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 7 on the website. And I know I may get some hate because a lot of people do like having, options, which options are great, but when the options start to overlap, if Apple had like a $500 laptop and then $1,000 starting laptop and then a $2,000, I could understand that. But the hard part is the lines of which computer is better is being blurred, and it's very confusing. And so I think somebody at Apple really needs to look at that 4-quadrant idea again and get back to that. So that way the products can get better. That way the A teams can focus on updating each product, and that we as consumers are less confused when going to buy, because you watching this video most likely is some sort of techie and you can kind of understand the difference. But you got to understand, again, I worked there for 4 years and people have no idea what these different tech specs mean. So when you go in and you're looking at a MacBook versus MacBook Air, they look the exact same. And then you wonder why one is more expensive than the other, but still somewhat close. So the 4-quadrant idea doesn't perfectly work for 2018 because back then, obviously, computers at the time were big and bulky, even the laptops, so it made more sense. Now it'd be more of like a 6-quadrant with some of the quadrants having 1 or 2 items in it. For example, I would add below desktop and portable, I would change portable to laptop, and then I would put a portable section which has obviously the iPhone and the Apple Watch in it. But I think the biggest lesson to be learned here is that when you update a device, kill off the old one. The used market and the stock supplies will be still sold in other stores, but when people go to Apple, they expect this amazing experience both online and in store, one that is seamless and easy to understand so that when you walk out of the store, you have the best product in your hands. And if anyone remembers the iPad 3, Apple didn't market it as the iPad 3. It was called the new iPad. And so it was super confusing because all the marketing was the new iPad. But when the 4th gen came out, they still sold the 3rd gen, but it wasn't called the 3rd gen. So if you went to Apple, you could ask, and obviously we would know the difference, and we would tell you, oh, silly marketing, this is the newest one, it's the 4th gen. But if you went to like Best Buy or Walmart or something, they would just have a sign that says the new iPad, but you're spending money on the old one. I know I can be a bit extreme when not thinking of having so many options, so let me know down in the comments below which products you think they should kill off, or if any, if you like having all these options available to you at all times directly from Apple. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day.